You know, I may have been a bit too harsh with The Land Before Time 9 and all of its CGI. Really, it's not so bad. Not in comparison to this monstrosity, no. This one absolutely takes the cake. It's absolutely everywhere and it's completely unavoidable. But my apologies, I'm already jumping the gun and I haven't even begun introducing us to this beast yet. So here's our opening, and geez, this is it, you guys. It's been 10 movies, and they really want you to know it. Look how big the number 10 is. Look how bright and red everything is. Anyway, here's our typical opening narration.
Though very different from us in many ways, these ancient giants resembled us in some ways too. They ate, they fought, they played, they slept, and sometimes, perhaps, they even dreamed.
Okay, I get it. Dinosaurs function just like we do. You don't have to list everything they do. Next you're gonna tell us they poop and have sex like us too. So Littlefoot has this ominous dream of some variety and, oh lord, there's that god-awful 3D effect I was talking about. And this is just the beginning. So, long necks are floating around everywhere and the sky gets real bright or something, and then he wakes up. Well, apparently he's not the only one having this dream. His grandma and grandpa have the same dream.
I think this feeling has something to do with the sleep stories I've been having.
Weird name. It almost makes me think they're watching soap operas in their sleep. They tell him that this may mean they'll be going on an adventure soon. I just want to know, why? The narrator was trying to tell us that dinosaurs do a lot of the same things we do. How often do people have the exact same dream? How often do all of those people decide to get up and go wandering aimlessly into the middle of nowhere together at the exact same time because of said dream? You know, I've really grown to dislike all the mysticism surrounding the Land Before Time movies now. There was hardly a touch of mysticism in the first movie, what with Littlefoot occasionally hearing the loving voice of his mother, but she was mostly saying the exact same things to him that she'd said while she was still alive. But this movie? Mystical dreams? Previous movies with space aliens who can poof wherever they want, whenever they want, and make green food appear out of nowhere? This is getting all a bit too weird for my tastes. Anyway, this actually marks the first movie where Littlefoot goes on a separate adventure from his other four in his group. He tells his friends that he'll be leaving with his family, and that it's probably only a long neck thing. Actually, he does more than just tell them, he sings it to them.
I'm going to go adventuring.
Adventuring? Adventuring?
I'm going to go adventuring, and who knows what I'll find.
So off he goes, right alongside Grandma and Grandpa. You know, here's a question. I thought everybody was escaping to the Great Valley because the outside world was simply changing too greatly and become far too perilous. It was like this was the time when Pangea was breaking up and we might have been coming across the early set-in of the Ice Age. Why, then, does this mysterious beyond look pretty darn beautiful and slightly less than perilous? Aside from the occasional crocodile trying to snatch up Littlefoot, of course, but that's just to be expected, right? Speaking of the croc, Littlefoot gets saved from it by a much larger longneck named Sue. And guess what? She'd been having the same dream too, and thus begins the major joining together of longnecks from all corners of the globe to God knows where. Oh, good lord, how much awful CGI can they shove in? The other kids can't stand that Littlefoot got to go on an adventure without them, so they venture forth after him on their own.
What could go wrong?
A lot could go wrong, really. See, they end up in that swamp that Littlefoot nearly got eaten in. The kids almost become a meal themselves, but not before the most awkward and unnecessary conversation ever written.
But I'm not sure which rock to step on next. This one's closer, but it looks sort of slippery. That one is farther away, so you might not make it. You would step in the icky goo again, and that is bad.
But if she slip on close one, she may be falling all the way, and that'd be worser. Me think she can get to farther one. She good jumper.
I am not saying she is not. But what about if that rock is as icky and slimy as this one?
Me no think of that.
You have to think of everything when you are in an icky, gooey place like this.
Oh, that very good point. But which rock next?
You see? Even the crocodile got sick of hearing it after a while. Petrie, despite being a flyer, manages to get eaten, but is saved completely by accident when Sarah conveniently breaks what is obviously a very flimsy tree, and it hits the croc over the head. Good going. The gang rests for the night at a boulder, which everyone watching the movie can tell immediately is not a boulder. We don't find out until the next morning, however, that this isn't just any not boulder, it's a Sharptooth. Okay, seriously, does anybody really believe that the Sharptooth wouldn't have noticed the kids for the entire night? Or that the kids would somehow wake up before he did, when he was obviously sleeping there long before they were? After hiding in a small cave, they lose the Sharptooth and instead cross paths with an old buck-toothed longneck by the name of Pat. Quite honestly, this may be the coolest guy in the whole movie. He's about the equivalent of a 60-year-old man who can still get around just fine and is cool to all the youngsters he stumbles across. I like this guy. But Sarah tells him that they're fine on their own, so he takes off. Geez, Sarah, don't you know a cool guy when you see one? Going back to Littlefoot and the army of longnecks sliding down CGI hills as if they were on roller coaster tracks, we find that they're here. Wherever here is. Looks like their goal was to reach some random crater in the middle of nowhere.
But what could make a hole this big?
It's then implied that the sun, at some point, had fallen from the sky and made the hole. In fact, Pat later confirms this story, suggesting that longnecks once saved the world by standing in one location and holding the sun up on top of their heads. Yeah, I'm sure they did. And I'm sure the sun totally caused this crater. Okay, look, I know these are dinosaurs who are running on old fantastical myths and legends, but just think about the audacity of it all. I mean, first of all, just how big is the sun? Well, for one thing, it holds 1,300,000 Earths, so yeah, I'm gonna say that something a lot smaller hit the Earth there. Secondly, just how hot is the sun? Well, just away from the surface, it's 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Inside, at the core, it's 14,500,000 degrees Kelvin. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that no longneck ever saved the Earth from the sun falling from the sky. But hey, you know, whatever, the simple-minded ones want to believe, that's their prerogative. Oh no, here's where things get interesting. Littlefoot stumbles across this jerk kid named Shorty. And when I say stumble, I mean that literally. Like Shorty trips Littlefoot on purpose. That's when a longneck named Brawn, get it, Brawn, because he's a brontosaurus. Whatever, the joke doesn't work because brontosauruses don't actually exist. Anyway, Brawn shows up and gently scolds Shorty. This is when we learn through Grandma and Grandpa that Brawn is Littlefoot's dad. Really, Universal? Really? 10 movies in, and now you want to introduce us to Littlefoot's dad? Okay, so what excuse does Brawn have for not being in Littlefoot's life for the last 9 movies?
Your mother and I knew we were going to have a hatchling. You see, we wanted to raise you in a safe place. So before you were even an egg, I went off to find a new home. For all of us. When I got back, the Earth shakes had changed everything. It took me so long to find where the nest had been, and nothing was left but a crack in the earth, as deep as a mountain is high. As I searched for your mother, and the young one I knew had been born, the great circle rose and fell many times, but I couldn't find you anywhere. I finally met someone who told me about your mom and the Sharptooth. But he had no word about you, so I kept searching. And then one day, I met a group of young longnecks, wandering in the wilderness with no grown-ups to protect them. At first I hoped one of them was you, but I soon realized that wasn't the case. They came to depend on me. So I stayed with them, took care of them. And then some others joined up with us, then some more, and some more. And in time, we were a herd.
You mean you're the leader of a whole herd?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Okay, I guess I can understand that. Wait, no! Don't sugarcoat this. Don't try to soften it for me. I realize he said he was going out to make a place for his family, and when he came back, Littlefoot's mom was gone. But really? Did he really have to leave her? My guess is, when he says he wasn't even an egg yet, then Littlefoot's mom was one of two things: pregnant or planning for parenthood. If she was pregnant, he should have stayed with her. After all, I didn't see anything wrong with the place they were living in previously until the landscape changed. If she wasn't pregnant, then why couldn't she just travel with him? You know, because I wouldn't say to my significant other, "Why don't you go find us a house? I don't need to see it or inspect it before I get there. Just get it for us and I'll settle there." Either way, it didn't make sense to separate. After that, he gets back to the same place where he'd left Littlefoot's mom, and she's gone, and he was never able to find her nor Littlefoot. Why not? Did he not know about the Great Valley? Seems like everybody was headed that way to me. Why would he have not thought to start heading for the Great Valley when he found his loved ones weren't there where he left them? I mean, come on, it's not like the directions to the Great Valley were all that hard. Let's see, how did it go again?
The bright circle must pass over us many times, and we must follow it each day to where it touches the ground. Past the great rock that looks like a long neck, and past the mountains that burn.
So, okay, go west every day, pass a dinosaur-shaped rock, and pass some volcanoes. Those directions aren't hard. They're so easy that even Littlefoot was able to figure it out pretty much entirely on his own. If Braun never found Littlefoot, it's because he never tried. And even once Braun got himself to become the leader of a whole herd, why would he not then take that herd to the Great Valley? Isn't it supposed to be this amazing utopia? Does he not want to make sure all the orphaned longnecks grow up safely? What's with this guy? Littlefoot has fallen into his deadbeat dad's lies. No matter, because he's plenty happy about it, and now he's going to sing for us.
It's nice to have a dad that you can be with, to share a part of each and every day, who you can talk and joke and play and eat a tree with, who wants to hear the things you have to say.
Back with Pat and the rest of the four friends. Oh yeah, because they all agreed to let Pat help them go get Littlefoot. Pat finishes telling the kids about how the longnecks totally held up the sun in the sky on top of their heads when he accidentally burns the living hell out of his foot by stepping into lava. Wait. Why did he think it was ever a good idea to lead a group of kids through lava? Was there really no other way to get there? I mean, I know Littlefoot's family passed through that swamp earlier, the same one the rest of the kids passed through, but I don't recall any of the other longnecks passing through dangerous, actively volcanic territory. But despite the fact that Pat took them through the obviously dangerous territory, the kids refused to leave him and his seared foot behind. So even though he's now slow and a liability, they decide to stick with him. Good job! Back in that hole that the sun totally left when it hit the earth, Littlefoot is feeling torn between his new family and his old family. This is when he sees Shorty stumble off on his own outside the crater, and Littlefoot pursues. Turns out Shorty is kinda jealous of Littlefoot, since now he's taking all of Braun's attention after all this time. After all, Shorty had been with Braun for much longer, but Littlefoot knows exactly how to fix this.
I thought maybe we could be like, you know, like brothers.
And it was that easy! Not a single other sentence had to be exchanged. Now Shorty's all smiles, and they walk back together as if they're going to go share some ice cream. But those smiles are interrupted by a Sharptooth! Luckily, this is the exact moment when the other kids and Pat show up. Pat distracts it while the kids head for the crater. Another Sharptooth shows up, and Littlefoot's dad jumps in for the rescue. The fight continues, but suddenly all the longnecks in the crater start lining up, staring into the sky like mindless drones, hoping to be teleported back up to their mothership. In all the excitement, the Sharptooths are also bewildered with whatever the hell is going on. Too bewildered to eat, in fact. This even gets them to take off running. Now, at first, everything may seem super mystical, but to me, it just seems like an incredibly convenient series of events. The longnecks may think that they're saving the world by holding the sun up in the sky on top of their heads, but from what I see, it just looks like a whole bunch of natural occurrences going on all at once. I mean, look at this. We have the early beginnings of a possible tornado, a solar eclipse, an electrical storm, a meteor shower, and an aurora borealis all at the same time. Quite frankly, these things happening all at once would be what freaks me out the most, not the concern that the sun was gonna fall from the sky and that I might have to catch it with my face. But it all kinda ends all at once, and the Longnecks take the credit for saving the world. Now Littlefoot is faced with an entirely new problem, whether or not to stay with his dad, rather than going back to the Great Valley with his friends and family. And oh dear God, the awful CGI is back.
Sometimes friends have to leave. It's very sad but true. But this me do believe, friends still a part of you.
I have a question. Why not bring your dad and his herd back with you to the Great Valley? Anyway, he confronts his dad, who's excited to spend time with his son, but Littlefoot decides against going back with him. His dad is utterly heartbroken. Wait, no, he can't be. How could he be? You know, this problem would be really easy to solve. Bring your herd to the Great Valley. Seriously, your herd will love you. You will get to be with your son. Is there some reason why you can't go to the Great Valley?
Hey, who knows? One of these days I might drag my whole herd over to the Great Valley for a visit.
If you can visit the Great Valley, why can't you stay in the Great Valley? Geez, somebody remind me why Braun was introduced to this series, please, because it seems pretty pointless to me. It would have been a lot better if we could have just assumed that Littlefoot never had a dad. Ever. No, really. I maybe would have preferred it that way. And the movie ends on more awful CGI effects as Littlefoot, his friends, and his family all walk back to the Great Valley together. What more can I say about this movie? A legend about Longnecks sharing the same dream and saving the Earth from the falling sun is pretty bizarre. The CGI effects are awful as usual, and no matter how nicely they tried to write Littlefoot's dad, I will never be tricked into believing he was destined to be a great father, because it seems like there were choices he could have made that never even crossed his mind. Really, Littlefoot's dad never needed to get introduced, and this is just another nail in the coffin that is the Land Before Time movie series. At least we're nearing the end of this horrendous series of movies, but this is when we need to hold on to hope the most. It's time to push on forward and through.